Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the AWS ISV Accelerate co-sell checklist breakout session. Thank you all for joining us here today. My name is Megan Lau, and I'm a Senior Product Manager on the AWS ISV Accelerate program team. I'm joined here today by Guy Farber, who's a Security and Networking Partner Leader, and Michael Musselman, who is the Senior Director of Technology and Strategic Alliances at Lacework.
Hey everyone, how's everyone doing? I gotta tell you, I'm really thankful that I have a voice this morning. After a few days, I think I've been inhaling cough drops to get ready for this. And I know we're kind of just between this and lunch. It's always a very strategic session in terms of timing, but we'll try to keep this really interesting and lively. And you have 3 speakers, so it's gonna be fun. I just wanna start real quick before we get into the content, get a sense of who we have here. How many people here, show of hands, are partners versus customers? How many are partners? Everyone. So mostly partners. And how many are in the ISV Accelerate program? So about a little bit more than half. Cool. And I'm almost done, I promise. How many have a product or solution listed on the AWS Marketplace? Okay. So it's pretty good. I think we're going to get a lot of value out of this session. Thanks for that. So what are the outcomes you can expect out of the session today? Every year when you work with us to try and improve and gain success in co-selling with AWS, we usually write together a partner business plan. And we're just about to start the planning season for 2023. Usually we do it December or January. So what this session will allow you to do is to either write your first partner plan with AWS in an effective way or improve on an existing scheme that you have. The other thing is, we grew like crazy over the last few years. We have a lot of partner programs at your disposal. We have a lot of roles, and it's sometimes really difficult to understand which one to leverage and when. And so those are 2 additional outcomes we're hoping to give you during the session today. And the way we're going to do it is we'll first define what co-selling is, because sometimes that gets a little bit confusing. I won't spend too much time on that. Then I think this is super exciting. We're going to have a conversation with Michael from Lacework, who I consider is one of the biggest experts on co-selling with proven success. And he's going to talk about the success Lacework and he had together with us over the past few years. And Megan's going to walk you through our brand new prescriptive guidance to co-selling with AWS, which is called the AWS ISV Accelerate co-sell checklist. I memorized that. And then we're going to finish with Q&A, so please save your questions. We'll make sure we answer them at the end. So what is co-selling? Let me tell you first what co-selling is not. That's a little bit easier. So AWS does not resell any of our technology partner products. In the traditional sense, partners don't resell our AWS native services. So what co-selling is, it's basically a selling motion where both AWS and an AWS partner work together to engage in an end customer opportunity. And there's 2 ways how this can get kicked off. Either you, the partner, discover and qualify a customer opportunity. You would like to get AWS sales help and leverage the relationship that we have with a customer to either accelerate the time it will take you to close the opportunity, to improve the probability of closure, or to try and expand and upsell the opportunity. You register the opportunity in our opportunity management, registration and management system called ACE, AWS Customer Engagements, and then you are connected to an AWS seller. The other way around is based on the enablement that we provide our sellers and incentives, they may find and qualify customer opportunities for you where they feel like you have the best product or solution to address the customer needs. and then they register the opportunity in the same way and refer it over to you. So those are basically, that's a quick summary of co-selling with AWS and using the ACE system. So with that, I want to start a conversation with Michael. So I'm going to invite Michael over. And Michael, why don't you start by talking a little bit about Lacework, about yourself.
Sure.
I think I can still advance the slides. About Lacework, about yourself, and some of the success you've had with AWS customers in co-selling with us.
Yeah, so Lacework is a Amazon partner. We do cloud infrastructure security on AWS and multi-cloud. We partner specifically in a lot of ways, and I'll get into some of the how behind some of this stuff. But we do partner to accelerate our sales cycles, things that we find, much like you said, these partner-originated opportunities. In many ways, we also want to be friends to tightly couple our solutions with AWS so that the customer working backwards has a better experience. If they're more secure, they tend to move faster, migrate faster, modernize faster. And fortunately enough, this is in many ways, I'm 3 years into this, first time ever doing it. My background, I'd never done this before, so a little bit of luck, a little bit of probably skill. I'll lean more on the luck and timing, but we did really well. We did it really fast. And I started really young at the company, so I was also able to kind of get us in a position to maybe do something different than some other peers have done it or accelerate faster. And we've got cool case studies, and that's a link to one where we talked with AWS and just kind of some of the metrics and things that we did in that first year. At the same time, we've been fortunate enough to grow really fast, well-funded. And so that's really allowing us, even right now in the macroeconomics, to continue to grow, continue to help customers, continue to innovate.
Excuse me pressing the wrong button. I lasered some of you, I think, by accident. Sorry about that. So when my team and my organization, when we work together with technology partners, we tend to think about 3 different motions. One is co-build, helping you build products together in an optimal way on AWS and innovate. Co-market, where you leverage the AWS brand in our marketing programs to generate leads and awareness. And co-selling, where we spend most of our time in this session today. But I know Michael has a model where he expanded this to 5 C's, so I'm going to let him talk about that.
Yeah, so we'll build this out, but most people know the 5 C's, or the 3 C's, as they're called, and I've just renamed this to 5, and I guess it's my own little brand. But the reality here is why this is important, just as a foundation for the rest of the discussions, is this is the lens that AWS is looking at you as a partner. And so if you understand that, it's real easy to flip it and say, well, this should be the lens that I'm doing everything I'm doing and the why behind I'm doing it, where it maps to this journey that I'm in with AWS. And so co-build, pretty straightforward. And I start here. This is actually hard. But I start here because this is that service integration with sometimes our competing or complementary security services at AWS. Sometimes this is the other tangential things. We do service, we do security for compute and S3 and containers and Kubernetes. So all those service owners, and obviously we're here at reInvent. So there was a whole bunch of launches, all kinds of new stuff. And Lacework strategically is built into a lot of these projects. The AWS Security Lake, some Kubernetes stuff. And that's another way that you're co-building with them. And you get some press, you get some notoriety, but also you get to shape the product direction as well. Second one is co-market. This one, actually, I didn't really start to do until year 3, this year of my partnership, and I'll explain some of that stuff in our journey. But this is, echo chamber. You think every press release we put out that talks about AWS and our partnership, that's now talking about AWS. It's marketing that they don't have to do. But same sense, we're in a bunch of AWS-led stuff. So in many ways, sometimes we get to, as the partnership is developed, we get to partner with AWS and actually get into programs and ride their marketing ecosystem, PR, AR, all that fun stuff as well. The next one is co-sell. Guy talked about it a little bit. Certainly, this is the heart of this discussion. We'll talk a lot more about it. I write here superpower, it's just a term we coined, a lot of other alliance directors, but this is at its core exactly what you do. This is really important for co-selling. What you do, why you do it, where you've done it before, what's that differentiation that makes you super unique. And remember, when I'm talking to a seller at AWS or we're talking with a seller at AWS, it's really important, SA, seller, anyone, why the customer is looking at you, why you're different, why this helps them working back from the customer. It's really important to know that. Consumption, that's my 5th C. So this is a hard one. You can't control this. We are built on AWS. When I started, we were a little company. Now we're a much bigger company. We spend more monthly than we did the whole year when I started. And why that's important is, look, it's reciprocal. They call it the dual flywheel. But we sell with AWS. We're built on AWS. And every customer we get, our bill goes bigger and bigger. But over time, that also gives you leverage. It gives you access. It starts to give you things that you won't have when you're young. So this is a patience thing, but it's important to understand how they're looking at you and then how you can maybe leverage that as you start growing up and getting bigger and bigger. The last one is just champions. This is probably pretty important. I just think of this as friends helping friends, and there's a lot of analogies or ways you can describe this, but at its core, this is people helping sell on your behalf. A lot of folks at AWS have become friends. I hang out with them personally, all of that stuff, but that relationship develops over time. So when I say friends, I really mean best friends. And that takes time, right? It's not something you ask for. You have to be into the same stuff, do similar things, but that takes time. So
I think I know that you have 3 phases, kind of how you look at your journey on AWS, and what's nice about Lacework and why we chose Michael and Lacework to talk today is because they've gone through this journey from registering as a partner to like achieving large scale relatively quickly. And I would like Michael to kind of walk us through. What I'll do, Michael, is for every stage, I'll basically just ask you a question at the end.
Yeah, so a lot of this is words and metrics, and on the next slide, I have some best practices, so I think this stuff will kind of hone in on that. But at its core, and you can also think of these as year 1, year 2, year 3, because these are the things, if you're trying to pace yourself or plan things out, these are good kind of milestones. But we joined the partner network for co-sell. I can't explain, I call it the key to Amazon's heart is Marketplace. So join the Marketplace. You can build it, you can buy stuff to help you. There's a lot of ways to do that. And certainly ACE and registering deals and then starting to transact in the Marketplace. There's some programs, they're mostly nomination-based. Global Startups one. But competencies, when you think about we do as co-build, competencies are important too. We're a security provider on AWS, there's a security competency, right? And there's other competencies that your solution might fit into. And it's both a huge validation that Amazon has looked at your technology, you've passed the test, and customers look at that and they're measuring you that way. But the flip side to that is also, this is the lens at which they're watching you progress as a partner. And the more you lean in, the more you do, in many ways, the more stuff you get. And so I put just high-level metrics. I call them metrics that matter, but like how much revenue you're doing in the Marketplace, how many co-sell validated deals that you're doing. Think about that as pipeline. How many of that pipeline launches or wins? Think of your closed win. And then at that point, it was me. I was one of one. We were a 68-person company. I was one of one. And we were about we finished the year at about 250 employees. So we were growing, but I was still just me kind of navigating this whole thing, executive down.
Yeah, and I think, thank you for that. I think it's worth mentioning, you might find this a mystery on the slide, but this dotted green line designates the total revenue through the Marketplace that Lacework has attained. And you can kind of see the nice progression there. So tell me, Michael, why did you choose to pursue the security competency, fairly early in your journey?
Security partner, it's almost like a validation of, we say we do security, Amazon's looked at us, we've gone through the SA checklist, we've submitted that, we have case studies, everything you have to do for competencies, and the flip to that is we've been validated as an Amazon partner doing security.
Yeah. In front of both, I guess, customers and sellers,
yeah.
which is awesome.
And I swear I can spell private right, I just missed it on this update. So the next phase is like you're just getting started. For us, this was year 2. My year 1 was really the first 9 months. Year 2 was, hey, there's something here. This is interesting. It makes sense. But now, maybe not at the next phase, but like, oh, what to do? And so I quickly realized I couldn't do this alone. So I needed help. I needed help from other parts of the business, dotted lines. I needed help on my own team. And so my team grew. And I hired people to take my standard operating procedures and run book and start to scale me out globally. But in many ways, this is when I had my first, and I'm really excited about this session because there was no checklist. You had to kind of figure this stuff out years ago. But we did sit down and we did start thinking about our own internal goals, looking at that lens, working. At this time, we got our first PDM, a partner development manager. I'll try to not use acronyms. And then just kind of start thinking about that. With joint marketing, this wasn't Amazon helping us. This was literally us doing marketing campaigns about Lacework and AWS services. But it was awesome. We were able to get SAs to join these. So it wasn't just us talking. We got SAs, and actually that team is gold on doing public speaking, doing webinars. So in many ways, you're kind of helping them achieve their personal goals. We're helping us. We're making a better conversation. And we found that when we did that, wow, the attendance audience was better. The content was a little bit better. And that's one of the values that Amazon brings to the table for you. ISV Accelerate, we're here to talk about that. That's definitely, I had a working backwards conversation. So I knew I wanted that, but I wasn't in it. So how do I start to, what do I need to do? What are the things that we're doing? We're close, but we're not there yet. It's a nomination thing, so you don't ask for it. You do all the right things, and then they say, hey, you've achieved it, right? Activating the channel. So we started doing CPPO. Channel partner private offers through the marketplace. Again, containers competency. So the give and get, doing the right things. And then we started to do more co-build. We started to work closer with some of these service teams, get invited by AWS into working with them. And that's where you start to show up on reInvent, Reinforce, Summit launches, things where you're starting to launch product and your logo and your name starts to show up. 1 year ago today, the Graviton Ready was launched in the keynote, or a few days ago. And it was just awesome to hear our name and Lacework's logo and lights. And so those are the little wins that you have to celebrate along. And then first EDP stands for Enterprise Discount Plan, more of advanced a topic I won't get into, but it's a commitment to AWS on your current spend. So there's thresholds and stuff, but these are, again, through the lens of this partnership, I talked about consumption. These are the gates and the things that start, and you're now committing. We're committed to Amazon. We're committed for a year, multiple years at this threshold. And so that's the give and the get as you're building a partnership or this best friend relationship.
Yeah, thank you for that. So, I know everybody here loves ACE, right? So my question is, you decided to go all in on, that was a joke.
Yeah.
You say you went all in on ACE, but you absolutely did. Explain the importance, what you got out of it, because it requires a lot of lift.
It's manual.
Right? It's a lot of work, yeah.
I think the first thing, and I'll talk about it, the first thing is I went straight to our president CRO. And in many ways, I think many of us, look at AWS as like co-opetition, right? We compete, there's some overlap, there's some underlap. But one of the things I felt passionate was the VP of sales and I talking to the CRO, and I said, I'd like to take everything out of our CRM when it hits like the right stage, when it's a qualified deal, and I want to submit that to ACE, and I want to engage the AWS rep on this deal. Tell them who we are, where we're headed. If they want to jump in the boat with us, maybe, but let's make that invitation. And why we wanted to do that is because we want their help. They're closer to the customer. They are customers of AWS and they're prospects of ours. So we are meeting them, trying to earn trust, but in many ways, they're already trusted by their AWS seller, and that validation's already there. So long story short, we had that conversation, and it was awesome. My VP of sales was like, yeah, we've been doing this a little bit, but we've never had a bad experience. They've never stabbed us in the back, and let's try it. And that was really the thing. And then what we really started to see is the kind of the flywheel spinning. A lot more engagement, trust, and I can talk further, but.
And a lot of partners ask me, we achieved competency, we validated ourselves in the market, we got into ISV Accelerate, so we're co-sell ready. What's next in terms of differentiating ourselves to the AWS sales team? And there's really two main things, and ACE is one of them. Showing a nice ACE pipeline. There's a lot of ISMs, ISV sales managers, that inject the ISVs into the selling cycle of our general sellers. They look at the ISVs with the top pipeline and top conversion. And then marketplace, overall marketplace revenue transacted becomes a key measurement. And so a lot of the partnership we measure across these two dimensions once you kind of pass the basic, you attain the basic programs. So I thought that was important to highlight.
Yeah, and I threw some metrics for us, because again, you're thinking about the metrics that matter. So then scale. For us, and it's different for every partner and where you are in that journey, but for us, this is year 3. So we're year to date right now. But you're seeing, bigger numbers get harder to double and triple, but you're still seeing a commitment to co-selling, marketplace, investments. We invest in our partnership, they invest in us, and you start to see this reciprocation. But there's other programs that exist. In many ways, these are nomination-based programs. There's 100,000 partners in the Amazon Partner Network. There's, you got to find, how do you break out? How do you differentiate from that? But they can't have everyone in every program. So you do have to start doing the right things, and it's a give and get. But in this case, again, still committed to more, ready designations. We've actually submitted this year to, I think, 3 other competencies or things. We've co-built a bunch of stuff. This week, I think we launched 4 services with AWS. And we're getting bigger. Our spend's getting bigger. And we have a new EDP this year that was scaled, longer period, bigger dollars. And in many ways, that's also allowed us to reaffirm that commitment to that friendship, to that partnership. And then there's other programs that give you, MDF dollars, which you kind of get as an APN partner, but like, how do I use those? How do I use those with? And this year, I also got 2 different marketers, product marketing manager, so really product market, and also demand gen. And they're dedicated to just our relationship with AWS. So now it's kind of sped up. We're doing better content, better assets, marketing those better, and the flywheel just keeps spinning. And Amazon, in our case, AWS has really become like a best friend and is helping us grow, and there's a good reciprocation. But it took time. And yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about one of the acronyms on the slide, CPPO, Consulting Partner Private Offers, which allows you to list your products on the marketplace, but also get them fulfilled through your traditional channel or to recruit new channels that are part of this program on AWS. Why did you decide to use CPPO as part of your international expansion strategy?
So like many businesses, like we were growing, we started in the US, we're a Bay Area company in California, and you put boots on the ground, and you start to build, and your customers start to get wider. And we realized that we had this kind of budding good friend relationship with AWS, and now we're in this new territory with no one knows who we are. In many ways, it's an experiment, turned out pretty good, we kind of worked with AWS and the relationships we had to like, hey, who are the right partners? And I think for many, when you're early as a startup, you're trying to just get product market fit, sell deals. And so that is in itself is really hard, and it can take different times. But then at some point you turn the page and you're like, wow, how am I going to scale? We still can't hire hundreds and hundreds of sales reps and sales engineers, and like this gets really expensive. So you need partners. And so Amazon also has partners and needs partners, professional services, SI partners, consulting partners, value-added resellers that have their own customers that are going through digital transformation. So if you can tap into that, we call it the power of 3, but it's Lacework, it's a value-added partner or an SI, and it's AWS. And we're all kind of helping the customer, but we're all in it together. And one of the ways that you can transact that is through the marketplace. And so instead of Lacework transacting with the customer through the AWS Marketplace, we actually are reselling it to the partner who's reselling it to the customer. And that whole capability exists. And now everyone's involved. We call it the Power 3.
Thank you. I know you have some additional best practices to kind of finish off with.
Yeah, we'll get through these real quick. And I think some of these just fuel questions. But start at the top. I mentioned the story about my president CRO. It's about expectations too. I think the joke in many ways, we're all channel alliance directors, CADs we call them. But in many ways, it's how do you frame that discussion? The most natural thing is for CFO or CRO, like how many deals do we get from AWS? Like what's our pipeline looking like? How much source business? Remember, they're not in our channel program, we're in theirs. And so you really have to think of it through that lens, and you have to do what they do. An analogy I commonly use, people have used it since I've said it, is like I felt like I planted an apple seed 2.5, 3 years ago, and I gave it water and sunlight, and I've been doing all this stuff, and now we're starting to get apples. We're bearing fruit from all that work and energy, but it's very long-term. It's a long-term commitment. But I commonly would say this to my CFO, VPs of sales, that it's a give, get relationship. Eventually, the gets are really good. There's no better partner in the world, and I seriously mean that. But it's not quick. It does take time. It does take commitment. It does take investment. Plan ahead. So I kind of had the foresight to think, like, where am I going to be in 2 years, 3 years? I think Megan will talk about it, but like that's what you want to think about in your plan. Challenge you, your team, your PDM, others, just like where do you want to be? What's my phase 1, phase 2, phase 3? What's my hiring plan looking like? And in return, like a business plan, we use that internally to talk to our executives, steer like this is where we are, this is where we're headed, this is where we're going. I found it to be very important. Metrics that matter. If you guys took pictures, or these decks are all going to be available. Don't speak their language, know what they're looking at. Guy just said it, like pipeline, marketplace revenue, or launched revenue. All of that stuff, I know my numbers right now, where I am year to date, almost cold, and I can have that conversation all week. Train your sales team. This is actually the part that no one tells you, and I know I have friends in the audience that worked at AWS and now work at ISVs. A lot of the energy and effort is just teaching the business, your business, what to expect, how to do it, why do we do this? And it's repetition, because every day there's a new salesperson, new sales leader, new executive. For us, it kind of feels like, Bill Murray in Groundhog Day, the movie. It's like, I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over, but like, that's the hard work. It's that thing, you'll get better and faster at it, and then you'll get the network effect where other sellers, other sales leaders are committed and helping. But in the beginning, it's just a grind of just like making sure people understand why we're doing this. And then you start seeing success, and then they start telling each other. And it does happen, but it's really important. And the ask here is really like committed cloud spend. And I have so many stories, but a few stand out where we sell a security product. We've met a lot of buyers that didn't have a security budget, but they have a big, massive spend on AWS and commitments for the next several years. And by asking them about their cloud budgets, asking them about that stuff, it actually is a more executive conversation. Many times it got us to the CFO, and many times by buying through the marketplace, it didn't really count the same way. So it's not all the same in all procurements and all processes, but it is a tactic. And now my sales team at hundreds and hundreds of people, this is an early conversation. What's your cloud commit like? Do you have one? Do you buy through the marketplace? What else? We ask that now, and you're starting to see push and pull. And I think through the next few years, for sure, we're going to see a lot more marketplace. We're hearing our buyers ask way more than ever before. This is my redo. If I could jump back into my DeLorean and go back in time. Operational excellence. It's hard. When you start scaling, it's hard. The good news is there's great companies that now build automation here. Tackle, Workspan, Launched. There's a bunch of companies, Ibera Labs, like I'm helping them out too because they'll help you. Like in the beginning, this is do it yourself and figure it out. But now there's solutions that help you automate ACE out of your CRM, help you get into the marketplace and build deals faster. And so you don't have to do this alone. And that's awesome to see the ecosystem maturing and new things like that. But in this case, it starts with people. And in many times, I have kind of a cloud ops team and our our core ops team, sales ops team, rev ops team. And we work together. But you will see that there's a lot of things to do and T's and C's to kind of cross. But this is an area that I would have invested in early. So as best practices, I'd recommend that all to just think about that and consider that. And then I can't stress this enough. You're all here listening to me and our story. Peers, right? Talk to your friends. I have a pin here that says Caddyshack Cloud Alliance Director, and we just turned it into a joke. But there's hundreds of us that all talk to each other and share best practices and stories. And so it's a LinkedIn group and Slack channel, time channel. So, but you guys can look that up. And certainly the QR code up there was to my LinkedIn, because I find just as much entertainment in helping us outgrow, but also helping others out. So. With that said, let me hand it off to Megan and get you into the details. So wherever you are in the journey, this is, man, I wish I had this years ago.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Michael and Guy. Now I will be walking you through the different steps of the checklist. Sorry. The checklist consolidates links to every asset that I'll be talking to you about in this session. You can find the checklist in Partner Central under the Resources tab. Once you get to the Resources tab, there will be a search function at the top, and you can type in co-sell with the hyphen in between, just like it shows on this slide. It'll be the top search result for you so that you can download all the links and assets that we'll be going through. If you have any questions after the session, feel free to stop by the APN Partner Network booth in the Venetian Expo in aisle 4000. All right, let's get started. The purpose of this checklist is to guide and support APN Partners Alliance leaders with a pragmatic step-by-step process to activate the co-sell motion effectively with the global AWS field organization. It contains best practices both from AWS ISV Partners as well as Amazonians to help APN Software Path members accelerate their co-sell motion, scale their business, and drive sales impact. AWS offers a variety of programs to build, market, and sell with AWS. Today, we'll be focusing on the Sell with AWS section. With this checklist, you'll be able to take what you learn and be able to implement it no matter where you are in the co-sell journey. With this checklist, we also assume that you're already an APN partner. With Guy's question earlier, it looks like most of you guys are, as well as you have built the foundation with your software on AWS services already, and that you understand your target market and customer segments. If you're not there yet, don't worry. You can still learn everything in this checklist so that when you do get to that point, you'll be able to just jumpstart and get started with the co-selling motion with AWS. At the end of a co-sell motion, solutions will be transacted either directly to the customers or through AWS Marketplace. Here are the list of topics that we'll be diving into today. The first is building the plan together with your sales and marketing leaders. Then you'll be operationalizing opportunity engagement through our ACE tool that Guy previously mentioned, listing and activating private offers on the AWS Marketplace, developing and executing a marketing and demand generation plan, publishing sales plays to the AWS field organization, setting goals and training your sales teams, engaging AWS sales, and lastly, establishing a performance review mechanism. The first step is to build your joint business plan. Both of these gentlemen previously talked about it, and this is going to be really important for you. The AWS Partner Business Plan is a tool meant to give AWS Partners Alliance leaders a place to report on your business development plans with AWS. This plan helps us learn more about your business and go-to-market planning updates so that we can best determine how to collaborate with your team. As you build this plan, it's really critical to bring in your sales, marketing, and product leaders to ensure that everyone is on the same page with the initiatives in your plan. As Michael highlighted as well in his best practices, he's also established metrics that are important to his business, and that's something that you can include in the plan. Another thing, if you have a partner development resource, you'll want to co-develop your joint business plan with your partner development resource to ensure that you're on the same page for what's coming for the rest of the year as well as the next year. Michael, could you share a little bit about how you started your business plan and how you established those metrics that matter to your business?
A little bit of this, but in all honesty, I think when you're thinking about your own business, what's important to you, Then it's like understanding your partner and then trying to align those things together. So I knew kind of in many ways like revenue, pipeline, that stuff's important, conversions, all of that stuff's important. But like how are we going to go get that? So marketing came into a lot of that. Can we do things together and drive demand that ultimately would start to build our own pipeline, but take some of the gifts that we were getting, put that stuff to work and like go figure that stuff out. But I think I talked about some of those and I put those metrics down there. That's a good place to start. What you're putting into ACE, how much is launching, Marketplace, how much is doing that. And then you'll find that you're speaking the same language as your partner. And then they start to reciprocate pretty well.
I want to add something real quick. A lot of partners ask me, how can we get better coverage out, like graduate from a startup coverage or a scale coverage into your team. And one of the things I always say is, I want to make sure that there's an owner on the other side for goals, and that there's an executive sponsor that will sign off on these goals. So we're not just writing a plan, we're committing to each other. We're not committing to each other in a legally binding way, but we're giving each other a word of honor that we're gonna do our best to try and attain these goals. And that allows us to kind of, with a lot of confidence, build up these goals and roll them up as an organization.
Thank you. Another thing to note is as we're ending the calendar year, you'll want to start preparing for initiatives that you want to be working on in 2023 if you haven't already. So to start thinking about those priorities that you want to go through, as well as any metrics that you might want to continually measure from this year to next year, or potentially even new metrics that you didn't measure this year that you'll want to start in 2023. One of the metrics that's important in co-selling is also the number of created and launched opportunities. This leads us to step number 2, operationalizing your opportunity engagements. This is the ACE tool that Guy was previously referencing. The APN Customer Engagement Programs, or what we call ACE for short, provides you with a platform to manage your pipeline of joint opportunities. ACE supports interactions between the AWS Partner as well as AWS sales, regardless of origination. ACE allows you to securely collaborate and co-sell with AWS and drive successful engagements with customers. The ACE user guide, which there's a screenshot right here of it, is the best consolidated resource to operationalize ACE within your organization. The ACE program team also conducts regular trainings and webinars and posts them onto Partner Central as well for your teams to utilize and consume that training content. Michael, we talked about how Lacework is all in with ACE, and you mentioned a little bit about how you were able to gain alignment with your leadership and kind of talk them through why ACE is so important. From a tactical perspective, can you talk a little bit more about how does your team optimize ACE on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so we've now implemented technology to help us connect directly from our CRM into the ACE system. But this is 3 years into the journey. In the beginning, it's just a commitment, like budgeting the time, going through Salesforce, going through talking with our sales leaders, pipeline calls, deal review calls, and just making sure the alignment's there. But in the end, it's great if it's something we're managing in our CRM system, and it's if it's not reflected on the other side. There's something that over time we've developed that co-sell motion quite a bit more, but it's pretty common that our sellers want Amazon's help in our deals. Well, how else can they help us if they don't see it? And so that's just become kind of a mantra for us to just remember the only way they're going to see it, the only way we're going to guess at which seller owns and manages this account is we have to do this through ACE. So just that commitment has always been there from the beginning. But the good news is there's ways to kind of help and speed this stuff up now.
Thank you. I previously mentioned that at the end of a co-selling motion, solutions are transacted either directly to the customer or through AWS Marketplace. If you're not yet listed on AWS Marketplace, we recommend chatting with your account manager or your partner development resource. For step number 3, listing on AWS Marketplace and activating private offers unlocks more value for customers and accelerates transactions for partners. AWS Marketplace private offer is a feature of the AWS Marketplace. It allows an ISV seller to create custom pricing and/or custom terms to customers using the product in our catalog. We can also offer a flexible payment scheduler feature where you can create custom invoicing schedules for products that traditionally bill upfront. There are several resources on our checklist to help you get started with AWS Marketplace. There's an AWS Marketplace how-to videos for private offers specifically, and there's also other content just in general for AWS Marketplace as well. If you're not yet on AWS Marketplace, or if you have any questions, there's also an AWS Marketplace booth in the Venetian Expo where you can talk directly with members of the AWS Marketplace team. Guy, can you talk a little bit more about the benefits of transacting through Marketplace private offers?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you've heard already that Marketplace significantly accelerates the time it takes customers to procure and deploy and manage technology products on the Marketplace. It also improves the probability of you closing a deal. And what that means, when a customer is able to have a much simplified and faster procurement process, it also allows, we provide a special incentive to customers in the form of, I think Michael mentioned, EDPs, enterprise discount programs, basically committed spend agreements where customers commit to us and get a discount in return. And we allow, for the past few years, customers to also consume these agreements by purchasing your products and your licenses on the Marketplace. And I think especially now in the current macroeconomic environment, customers are downsizing their IT budgets. They're going to reduce their spend, but they have these commitments in place. And so offering them additional flexibility in how they can consume these commitments is very compelling. And some of the questions that Michael was discussing before, one of the first few co-selling questions that your salespeople should ask? Do you have an EDP in place? Are you set up to procure through the Marketplace? These are things that can unlock additional budgets and opportunities for your sales team. In addition to that, we also incentivize our sales team to work with you to transact through the Marketplace. So they'll get an additional compensation incentive. And so you transacting through the Marketplace brings you into better alignment with AWS sales.
Step number 4 is developing your marketing and demand generation plan. So you've built your plan to co-sell with AWS, you've established goals, you've operationalized opportunity engagement through ACE, and if you're listed in Marketplace, you have activated private offers. Now it's the time to build your go-to-market plan. There are 2 resources in the checklist to help you get started. The first is the Go-to-Market with AWS Basic Guide. This guide will help you structure your plan and guide you to build better together messaging and discover demand generation opportunities. The second resource is the AWS Marketplace Academy portal. This portal provides resources to complement your overall go-to-market plan for campaigns supporting your offerings that you have listed in the AWS Marketplace. Michael, I know that one of your focuses this year was building out your marketing arm. You talked a little bit about it before as well, but can you talk about how you actually started your marketing plan?
Yeah, I think I did in the beginning, which was a lot of this was partner-led. It was us doing these campaigns, but in many ways it was pulling in resources from AWS. So we would get access to an essay, maybe in a deal we just won. Like, that was awesome. We had such a good time. Thank you for your help. Like, we're doing this webinar. Like, you just saw this first person. Like, it doesn't have to be with the customer's name or not. In security, that's really hard to get case studies. But like, just to talk about the story, this large gaming company in Las Vegas that we might be in today, they just bought Lacework, and let's go tell that story. And in many ways, that's one way to start it. And you'll find the more of the stuff that you do, and I can speak very highly of AWS, the more you lean in, the more you get back. It's a give to get, but in many ways, it's an investment in time, resources, money. And so over time that develops, but in the beginning it was our own marketing plan from our marketing team, and then I was trying to figure out how I inject our partner into that.
Step number 5 is publishing sales plays to the AWS field organization. We recommend concentrating on 1 or 2 well-established customer use cases, including previous AWS success. Tie these use cases to publicly referenceable customers, case studies, and your field ready kits so that you can highlight how your solution can potentially help a new customer. This will allow you to work backwards from a successful customer outcome to potentially create new use cases so that AWS account managers and ISV success managers can use them for their customers. Guy, for both our marketing plans as well as sales plays, we talk about this better together messaging. We know it's really important to create and for partners to truly articulate what the better together messaging is. Can you share a little bit about how partners can create that better together messaging?
Yeah, the best thing is to have a great product. But in all seriousness, you want to show both our customers and our sales teams your differentiation. You can't be just another company that does the same thing. So what is your differentiation to the end customers that we're trying to sell to? And what's your differentiation or the value that you bring AWS? And one of the things that you can improve your differentiation is being very focused. Is saying, I'm going to target the following customer segments and the following industries, and I'll create custom better together messaging for those, and I'll leverage those when I engage the AWS sales team. Having that a little bit more surgical approach tends to come a long way. And then finally, what you can also do is try and align yourself with the primary AWS selling motions. Where do you fit in migrations, modernization, moving customers to manage data services, things of that nature? Do you unlock some sort of opportunity or remove a barrier? Or do you do the same thing for a strategic workload like SAP? So taking something that the AWS salespeople really understand and attaching yourself to it tends to be a lot more valuable than trying to teach them from scratch.
So now we've talked about enablement for AWS sales teams. Let's talk about enablement for your sales teams now. Step 6 is training your sales teams. The AWS ISV Accelerate team created a 30-minute online training course specifically for partner sellers. We recommend that all of your sellers take this course, and we've even found that some of our partners have included this in new employee onboarding plans. The topics covered in this training course are similar to that of this checklist, but it also includes some more tactical processes, such as how a seller can submit something through ACE in bulk or one-off. Michael, I know you're involved in training your sales teams. What are some of the best practices that you found to be most helpful for partners to train their sellers?
Yeah, in the beginning, I would say this is probably 80% of where I spent my time, right? And this is awesome. Like we didn't really have anything. In many ways, my advice to reach to peers, I asked a lot of my peers that were at scaled ISVs, top partners. I'd see their name in lights. What'd you do? How do you do it? Why does it matter? And I'd kind of use friends and people who had done this before to kind of give me all the goods. I also went to a bunch of AWS sellers that I'd worked with in the past or I'd recently met through that journey and just said, what's important to you? What partners are doing it right? What are they saying right? What are they saying wrong? So I ended up taking all of that and building my own enablement. And it's evolved over time. I don't have to do it as much. But one of the other things I now look back, I reflect, and I realize it helped a lot, was I got myself inserted into our new hire training for all of our go-to-market teams. So this is sales, SAs, marketers, like anyone on the GTM side of the business. And so I got a little bit of a session. We were hiring so fast, but every time one of those got virtual, I got to go do a little section. I'd talk about a partnership and where we are and what we do and why we do it. And at that time, they're drinking from a fire hose and there's so much stuff to learn. But I would just say, look, only thing you have to take away is remember, like, take my name down, remember my team, and just reach out to us later for help. And then what we would do, someone would reach out, we'd go jump on a meeting with them, we'd spend 10, 20, 30 minutes talking deeper. But investing in your people, your teams, your go-to-market teams, no better investment. And these resources and tools, you may be able to just use them out of the gates, but you may be able to pull from that just like I did and figure out what works for you and your sellers and your culture and build that into your plan.
Absolutely. And in addition to sales teams learning AWS processes as well as co-selling best practices, it's also really critical to learn who and how to engage with AWS sellers. Step number 7 is engaging AWS sellers. I want to acknowledge that not every partner has an assigned partner development resource, in which case you'll want to start off with your account manager. The AWS account manager leads the customer relationship and adoption of AWS. The ISV success manager works really closely with the account manager and connects partners to opportunities. There are also other sales team members that are not listed on this slide, such as technical account managers, business development managers, and sales specialists. Once you have a qualified opportunity, you'll want to reach out to your AWS account manager or your ISV success manager to loop in an AWS Marketplace customer advisor so they can help to explain the value of AWS Marketplace to that customer that you're working with. Michael, can you share some best practices on how your Alliance team and sellers interact specifically with all these different roles at AWS?
This is actually all the keys to the kingdom right here. This is all the secrets that us that have been doing this for a while. It's how you interact with all of these. And I know Guy said it earlier, the key word in this slide, qualified opportunities. When you're work on things that are qualified. The deals that you know where you are, where you're headed, and in that case, you have a high propensity to sell to those customers. You understand their pain. You know what you do to solve it. Those are the ones that, and if you do that enough, you'll start to build trust. You'll start to build other friends in the sellers and in these segments and focusing. But there's a whole other array of folks that are in the account, in the partner overlays, in the marketplace overlays, and these are all the resources. I think what happens is over time, you stay close, and then you'll start to find your own tactics of what resource can help me where I am in the deal cycle. And so this is a map of the what's and then the how's. It's different for everyone, right? I couldn't just lift and shift this to another company and it's gonna work. So I think just understanding the who's and the where's and then figuring out how your business works, again, your culture, your people, your sales process, you're gonna have to adapt it a little bit. But these are all folks that have goals, and many times their goals are tied to their own income and revenue that are here to kind of help you facilitate this stuff.
And last but not least, we have establishing performance review mechanisms. Regardless of whether you have a partner development resource or not, we recommend downloading this template of our quarterly business reviews. This template will help you develop the framework to report on your business. The template includes topics such as a performance scorecard, prioritize go-to-market plays, and some of your initiatives that you want to focus on throughout the year. If you have a partner development resource, it's important to align with that resource to figure out what you want to do for the rest of that year. And you can use these quarterly business reviews, or QBRs, as a mechanism for you to stay in lockstep with your partner development resource. If you don't yet have a partner development resource, this is still a good mechanism to adopt so that if you do get a partner development resource, you'll be ready to have that framework set already on your end so that when you have that resource, you can just kind of jumpstart and get ready to go for any quarterly business reviews. There's also monthly business reviews and weekly business reviews as well, but this one in particular is for quarterly business reviews. Guy, I know you've been involved in many QBRs. Can you talk a little bit more about what some folks in the audience may not know about why QBRs are so important with our partners?
Yeah, well, first I want to say you don't have to do QBRs. You can just do BRs, right? They could also be biannual or whatever fits your schedule and the way you want to do it, because sometimes it's a really heavy lift. You want to have a really good outcome. So a lot of people think about a business review as a way to report the success, the performance, the health of the partnership to stakeholders and to executives, but we kind of view it sometimes a little bit different. This is a great opportunity to have real discussions about future additional business opportunities, as well as removing barriers. I participate in QBRs with sometimes large partners. They include their CFO, who then unlock budgets and resources right on the spot. It's a little bit risky. It's a little bit uncomfortable sometimes to have open conversations about difficult topics, but this is a great opportunity. You still need to manage the time really well. You need to allocate the time you want to review the metrics and the current business, but leave some time to kind of tackle big rocks and opportunities together with the executives in the room. And then finally, you don't have to do every business review as a big one. You can do kind of sort of like a TikTok approach where you can do one big, like a QBR with a lot of executives on both sides, and then a small, more operational, more tactical one the next time. And that'll ease the load and allow you to achieve a better outcome every time you get the executives involved.
So those are the 8 steps of the AWS ISV Accelerate co-sell checklist. I hope everyone will take at least one new thing with them into the new year so that you can take action on these items right away. I'd like to thank Michael again for sharing lessons learned from Lacework.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
We'll just be over there.